Pastor Matt, I can't remember everything I would say, so I wrote it. Thanks to Pastor Matt for the invitation to share some reflections. Can you all hear me? Okay. Yeah, kind of share some reflections on the gospel this week. Kind of led this question, in this lesson, we hear how Jesus cures a blind man by spreading blood on his eyes. And it's easy to read this story primarily as a demonstration of Jesus' divinity and to categorize it alongside Jesus' other miracles in the New Testament. However, I think there's something else going on in this lesson as well that comes out when we think about the two groups concerned with the question of who sinned in the week. First, there are the disciples who wonder upon encountering the blind man whether it was the man or his parents who must have sinned. Then there are the Pharisees who, upon learning of the miracle, fixate on Jesus' violation of the Sabbath. I'm going to focus in my comments on the disciples, right? But I think what I will say is relevant to thinking about the Pharisees' response as well. So, the disciples. The disciples don't really play a big role in the reading today. I mean, they only occur purely in the first two sentences. And I think, though, what they're saying sort of runs parallel to some themes from the Old Testament book of Job. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Job to kind of shed a little light, I think, on what the disciples are saying, what Jesus is saying as well. So, as you remember, right, in the book of Job, right, we learned that Job is kind of living large, right? Job has many thousands of livestock, many children, right? He's an important and respected member of his community, right? Moreover, we learned that, Job is a good guy, right? What it says, in fact, is that Job is blameless and upright. Right? But that's not the interesting part of the story, right? The interesting part of the story is the fact that, Job is going to be tested. And so we learned that, Job loses everything that had value for him. Right? So he loses his livestock, right? He loses his children, right? And finally he loses his health. So in the next part of the story of Job, right, his friends come to visit. And their primary concern when they come to visit, this takes up almost a huge chunk of the book, is they want to know why this happened to Job. And so they're sort of grilling him about what he's been up to. And they kind of come at it from an angle saying, well, Job, this must somehow be your fault. Right? Like, what was it that you did that brought this upon you? In other words, like, what did you do to deserve this fate? Right? And I think that's the part that I think runs parallel to kind of what the disciples are kind of asking at the beginning of our reading for today. So that question, what did you do to deserve this? It makes a pretty substantive assumption about the way that the world works. Right? Namely, that people only get what they deserve. Right? So, if we go back to the disciples here, remember that at the outset, the disciples asked Jesus about the blind man. They say, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Okay? In asking that question, the disciples make exactly the same assumption that Job's friends do about Job. Namely, that people only get what they deserve, and so the man or his parents must have deserved the misfortune of his being blind. Okay? So, we're not as explicit about it when we do this today, but I fear that we do this a lot today, right? So in my experience, at least, right, places that I've seen this, places that I've already done this, right, or when you hear about other people's kind of health problems, or their financial problems, or their relationship problems, right? So we might, for example, upon hearing someone's disease, or bankruptcy, or divorce, ascribe it to their terrible lifestyle, right? Their laziness, their poor emotional intelligence, or whatever, right? But one of the things that we learn right away, and again, back the Gospels is this is a real problematic piece of reasoning. This is a real problematic assumption that's at work here. Right? So we're called, in the book of Job, right at the very outset, we're told that Job is blameless and upright. And Job's suffering that is visited on him, right, is not his fault, right? It's the test. So Job's friends are totally wrong, right? Job's suffering is undeserved. It's serving a different purpose. Right? In the case of Job, we hear that it's serving the purpose of the test, right? This is even more direct in the reading for today. So Jesus automatically repudiates the disciples' suggestion that the man's blindness is somebody's fault, saying neither this man nor his parents sinned, and explaining that he was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. So, that is. The man's blindness is not deserved, but serves a distinct purpose. Okay? So, okay. I think that's not super hard to get. I think that's pretty straightforward, right? But there are different ways of taking this lesson, right? And here's one way you might take it that I think would be inadequate. I don't think you would take it this way. Somebody could take it this way, and that would be here's what I do. So here's the inadequate way of taking this. Thanks, Job. Thanks, Jesus. I get it. It isn't Job's fault that he's suffering, nor is anyone to blame for the man's blindness. Sometimes it's nobody's fault. I understand. Right? There are cases of undeserved suffering, and in those cases, I shouldn't blame you. Okay. But the inadequate line continues. Right? Let's be honest. I mean, a lot of the time people bring misfortune and suffering on themselves, right? I mean, nobody's surprised when the reckless driver gets in an accident, right? Or that the smoker gets cancer. And so, in those cases, says the inadequate line, there's nothing wrong with blaming the victim, right? I mean, it really is their fault in those cases. Right? So, no, right? I think with that direct, I think we all said, that's kind of a problem, right? We don't want to say that, right? But why? Well, on the one hand, yeah, it's true that sometimes it's nobody's fault, but sometimes it is. So what's wrong with blaming people in those cases? Right? So here's an example that I think will bring out the wrongness of it, right? The problem with doing it. So say your child has accidentally cut themselves on a piece of glass. And it's bleeding. There would be something wrong if your first response is to try to piece together whether their injury is due to this behavior, right? As we all know, and probably most of you have done at one point in your life or another, you should try to stop the blood, right? You should figure out how serious this is. You need to figure out whether you stitch or not, right? That's what matters at that moment, right? So it doesn't matter kind of why it happened or kind of whose fault it is or whether it is anybody's fault, right? Even if it really is. So to focus on whether the injury was due to this behavior, again, even if it was, would be a serious failure of parenting and a serious failure to prioritize what's really important. Right? So again, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with going back and trying to understand why bad things happen. Right? There's nothing wrong with trying to prevent them from happening in the future. Right? But the point here is that the time for looking back and trying to understand, right, is after after doing what we can to help. So I think that this is not a mind-blowing message. I think that on some level we all know this, right? And so I want to close by thinking about, I guess, what's kind of an interesting question in light of that, which is why do we do this if we know this is not what we should do, right? And I just got a couple minutes here, and I'm sure the answer to this question is super complicated, right? So I'm just going to throw out something that I think is relevant. But I think that a big part of why we do this has to do with the related factors of fear and control. So think about Job's friends for a second. So if Job is suffering because he did something wrong, then all his friends need to do to avoid the same fate is to not do what Job did, or to do what he didn't. Right? So that is, they can thereby control a future they fear. And to be honest, like, nobody wants to live through what they're doing. When I ask, upon hearing that an acquaintance had lung cancer, whether they smoked or not, I'm trying to get in front of my own fear of that same fate. After all, I don't smoke. And if they did, then they brought it on themselves. And so I don't have to worry about it because I don't. Right? So, in that kind of case, right, what's going on, I think, is I'm assuaging my own fear. Right? I'm letting sort of the prevention of my own fear become my priority at the expense of the compassion that I owe, right? And it should prioritize to those who are suffering. So, I'm kind of going beyond what was in the reading for today, right? But I think that, the idea that fear and other forms of self-centered thinking can get in the way of life and get in the way of treating our neighbors as ourselves is a broader theme that I think we are all here for. So,